Alright everyone, Supreme Kami over here, and it is time to jump into some Alteration review over here. So we do have two specifically melee unit for this week, so actually going to be breaking them up. So I'm going to be doing the double extend riser first, and then going to jump into the Ashmouth in a later video. So in terms of this week, I will have to say we are finally blessed with a P attribute melee unit over here, because as you guys can see, like we've been having a lot of like tech attribute speed. Like what we got 3 speed attribute. Like, are you kidding me? And even for tech attribute, we got a 3. Like this way we got the Ashmouth Origin, and this one is another tech attribute. But lo and behold, we have a P attribute finally. So let's kind of take a look and see how this one goes down. If you guys did see my summoning video yesterday, it was completely flaming. Like, not even kidding. Like 5 arms. Are you kidding me? Like 5 arms? Like, look at that. Look at my arm. Wait, what's, oh, I altered already. What am I talking about? I still have a spare that I can use for a sub slot, but probably not gonna work on it yet. So yeah, let's actually just jump into it. So I do have the layout over here. You guys can see that. This week is gonna be pretty easy to just do the alteration review for you guys, because I do have both of them here already. So you guys can definitely take a look to see which one is better on the list already. Word tag attribute, definitely, P attribute is definitely something we needed. But we currently do have 7-star unit that is able to go up to 7 stars. So that's why I'm primarily gonna focus on them, because those are, like, you can say, quote unquote, the best of the best currently. But not to discount any of our current 6-star parts. They're still really good. It's just not the fact that they can't really go up to a 7-star rarity, so I can't, it's not gonna be a fair comparison if I do compare them at base level 1. So yeah, jumping into the head and see how things goes over here. So the primary war tag for this guy is actually going to be a high mobility, pro tag, high firepower, as well as close combat. So this one is actually doing a bunch. So in terms of what we have been seeing, but first, before I talk about that, have you guys noticed how big the GN drive is? Like, I don't know if that's intentional, or did they somehow messed up and make like a big scale. Probably like that GN drive right there looks so out of place. Like, I don't know. They better fix that, because like that really looks like a master grade size right there. So not sure what's going on. But in terms of overall head, like, I am actually shook that we have like a really high shot attack. Like, look at that. So this one is supposedly like a melee centric head, but the shooting on this one is actually pretty busted. Like, I would even consider using this on a shooting build if I needed to, but obviously the word tag isn't really gonna support that for sure. In terms of your melee, you guys can definitely see that it is currently ranked, what is it? Rank 5, you can say. So it's barely coming in at 8,000. So you're like roughly about 700 from the rank 1, which is gonna be the Ashmouth Origin over here. So pretty good. But in terms of overall portrait, I don't think anyone will even try to portrait this one, because first of all, the first portrait is going to be like an enemy shooting reduction trait, so it's not going to be like of your ordinary level purely power boosting. So I'm not even sure how many people would actually want this over here. So this is probably not going to be the best investment, I gotta say. But one great thing about this set, I do have to say that it does have pro tag, so that is going to make your melee build a lot more smoother going around. We definitely don't have that many pro tag units, like even from the list over here. We currently only have 3. Like, of the bunch, we only have 3, and that's why I do consider pro tag being the gem of the war tag for melee specifically. So this one, I will personally don't alterate this one, just for the pure fact that you're not really gaining too much. So this one is just not too good. So yeah, moving on to the torso. So this one probably not gonna be the best of the best either. How we look like, it's not too bad, right? So from the torso is like more or less on like the middle of the pack, so not the highest, not the lowest, so it's pretty good. For the stat sticking is definitely really good. Armor wise is 9k is actually pretty good. The raw melee attack is like 5k, pretty good as well. Defensive value is not really the highest that we have seen so far, but me personally, I'm not going to like suggest you guys to alterate it, because this one is purely going to be like a EXQ base over here. So I don't really like alterating like these specific awakening skills. This just because of the fact that if you are going to use some other EXQ, I don't know. I feel like using EXQ that comes to buffer is sufficient enough already. because this is simply an awakenable skill as an EX skill that is gonna take your EX skill slot. It's kind of a waste, to be honest. So probably not gonna be the best alteration. But if you guys are purely using the torso for the stat staking, you guys can definitely wait, I would have to say, because we do have better options from the list over here. We definitely do have something you can say a little bit better, maybe going for this one or this one. Like these are definitely top notch for right. Pro tech close combat or high firepower. So these are definitely something you guys can be looking out for in the later future. If you guys have any like whenever they give us those step up banners where we can actually pick it apart. So I think these are definitely something you guys want to keep in mind as what you get. This one just having EX skill is not really doing it for me. So probably gonna be not going to be the part I will alterate. So yeah. Alright, so moving on to the arm. The arm unfortunately does not pro tag, so I was really bummed out on that one because this one clearly is the only one that has pro tag. So in terms of doing your overall build, this one is going to be slightly easier to do. But in terms of why this list is a little bit smaller, because I did not include the asthma arm as well as the enhanced double data, because they're not actually a single arm, they're actually arm plus the integrated shield. So they are going to be rated at differently, because if you do have a integrated shield, that means you won't be able to get some portrait for your shield slot. So that's why I don't really recommend those. But they definitely do have their own really high stat just for that one single part. But those are definitely going to be parts that I'm not recommending for the main slot for sure. In terms of what we're looking at so far, this is definitely going to be the chaser parts you're looking at, because this is going to be your next 40% trait arm up here. But my one concern about this arm specifically is you do have to use a rifle category, which is probably something we have not seen like throughout the history. I think for the arm specific, yeah, do let me know. Were there any arm that is locked to like a specific weaponry for like your ranged weapon? I don't think so. I think the most we have is maybe locking you to using a specific melee weapon, but in terms of locking you to like a specific ranged weaponry, I think that is probably a first, I think. But in terms of the overall arm right now, it's going to be standing in the very top for now. So coming in at 17,000, which is pretty high. So I did take into the 40% change gear, so that's why it's going to be a lot more higher than what we're looking at so far. But this arm is definitely going to be one of the one you want to be chasing if you guys do purely want some 40% trait boosting. So this is definitely the chaser part. But if you guys are simply trying to hunt for this part, I will have to say you guys can definitely use some of the other ones first, like maybe not the Barbator's one, because I don't think that one is easy to grab at this point in time, because you can't really pick it up. So that's why that one's probably not going to be up the recommendation. But I would definitely still recommend the double shield quanta arm, because that one does have a 40% trait, and I think that one is still sufficient enough if you guys are not able to put this arm, for example. But yeah, this is definitely gonna be one of the arm you want to get for sure. So moving on to the leg part. So what are we looking at? In terms of the overall leg part, okay, surprise, this is actually one of the top, like, the overall stat is really good. So the overall stat distribution, okay, it's actually not that bad. Armor is still pretty consistently high, and then in terms of your shot attack, it's actually not too shabby. Like it's relatively close to your melee attack as well. So that is definitely a big shocker, to be honest. Melee defense or shot defense, to be specific, is not even that far off. Like so it's pretty good, actually pretty good. Melee defense is kind of okay-ish, I guess. But in terms of overall portrait, I don't know. This is definitely not going to be, like I said again, not going to be your pure power boosting. So it does have one of those gimmicks where it's going to raise some other attribute. Like this one is specifically boosting your job gauge by 40%. I don't know. I feel like increasing job gauge is not really that important to me personally. I know that if you do activate your limit break, you do get like additional boosting, which is pretty impactful. But I don't see, like, if you do activate your limit break that one time, I feel like it should last you throughout the end of the match. So that's why I don't see a point in even using like these over here. Like I'm pretty sure any match can be completed within like a minute or two at most. So like having to recycle to a second level break is kind of unnecessary in some just for the scenario. So probably not gonna be the best case scenario. So this is probably something you can definitely skip. But if you do purely want to alterate it for the pure stat sticking, you can't go wrong with that. It's just the portrait is not the most optimal. So just a fortunate factor right there. But definitely a pretty good luck to be looking at. So if you ask me, do you want to alterate it? Probably not. Probably not going to be like the best case scenario, just because it's not really giving you that pure like double 40% trade boosting. Like I thought that was a double 40% trade boosting, but it's actually 1 to a job gauge, so probably not for not good for alteration. So moving on to the back part. So in terms of the overall back part, it's pretty good actually. Still holding up in terms of the overall stat. They're not really that big of a gap anyways for like the top, like from the very top to the very bottom. But in terms of the overall stat wise over here, this one is still not too shabby. Armor wise is still looking pretty good actually. Shot attack is still up there. Like why? I'm not sure why this one has a pretty good shot attack, being a melee type unit. In terms of overall beam resistant, physical resistant, they are pretty much non-existent. So in terms of the ZX over here, this is one of the most cinematic and one of the most aesthetically EX I've seen so far. Although I say that it's really good, but in terms of the overall like effective time, it's actually pretty long. The animation wise is probably longer than it should have been. So I'm kind of worried about how all these buffs can actually roll over, because due to how like once you activate EXQ, you get all these buffs, right? But they do have like a set amount of timer they can be activated for. Since this EXQ is extremely long, so I don't know how that would translate overall. But in terms of this overall EXQ, this man is coming in at SS minus power already. So this is gonna be another one of those pure gem EXQ you want to be getting for like a pure power, obviously. So it's not bad overall. So you're getting a flat out SS power boosting, which is crazy. Like, do keep that in mind. You're also getting a health recovery as well as a 49% value power boosting, which is something we don't get too often. So this is actually really good. Also some speed increases. So okay, like what else can you ask for? So this is definitely going to be a EXQ to alterate, just because of the fact that you are getting such enormous amount of power boosting. So this one, if you do alterate it, you cannot go wrong with this. So definitely going to be a recommendation for alteration. But speaking of something you have to alterate, man. So in terms of the melee weaponry, I did list out everything that is that we have came out so far. We have everything from like Sokora, all the way, or yeah, the Cold Star. There you go. And then all the way to this over here. So in terms of this one over here, so the stat for this one specifically and these two are actually a little bit different, so gotta keep that in mind. But in terms of overall stat, you guys can definitely see some drastically stat differences already from the Kosora, and then all the way to or recently like this just now released the XM Riser over here. This one is called Sora. This one does have one of the better trade already. So this one is coming in a 40% trade, while these two are just kind of like they just rendered to completely like kind of outclass rated, right? Why would you pick these over this one, right? For example, but in terms of this one over here, this is a must get. This one is coming in first portrait. It's going to be a simple 30% boosting when you have a prototype active, but the second portrait is where it's gonna come in. This is probably one of the best things they have drawn for this overall kit over here. So when buffed it, so whenever you activate EX skill, that counts to buffs over here. So immediately when you apply this EX skill, you can actually take benefit of that buff EX skill effects already. Because when you talk about buffs, when buffed it, like these over here, so you can immediately activate the secondary portrait already. So I talked about buff trait numerous times on the channel already, and they act differently than your normal, let's say, melee power boosting / your EXQ power boosting, because how it is, how it's calculated. I think it's actually a lot more different. So these are actually going to allow you to hit a lot more harder, and just the fact that you can actually stack them 3 times. So if you have 3 EXQ, that is going to give you attacker buffs. They will actually roll over to all 3 EXQ. So at the end of the day, talking about optimal setup, you can use all 3 EXQ in a match. You should be getting roughly about 90% more per, right? So this is one part that has a 30%, and do keep that in mind. We have numerous part throughout, like from the head to the pilot slot, that has a lot of these buff traits over here. So you guys can imagine how many times that can get or roll over. So me, in terms of my overall build right now, I think one of my build actually has over 100% buff EXQ effects over here. So by the time I activate my final EXQ, I should be getting an additional 300% power boosting. So that's how powerful they are, because when I activate one EXQ, they'll actually roll over 100. They'll actually plus 100% to whatever this stuff is doing, right? So for instance, this one is doing what, 40%. So if I activate this right here and then take into the consideration of those buff traits, I am actually generating 140% trait, or 140% boosting. So that's why this one right here is actually the must-have. So not too bad. So this one does not actually comes with any melee defense, but in terms of overall rod attack, is actually really good already. So not bad. This is definitely the one to pick up. In terms of the other two, let's kind of go over them and see how they are. Okay, whoa. This one is actually not that good, because of the fact that you're locking out to 2 specific vortex. So that is never the option. I will have to say, locking to 2 specific vortex is not really that great. So whatever, like what happens if you cannot use, let's say, high mobility, or let's say high firepower, so you are gonna lose out on one of the other portrait. So this is probably not something to kind of alterate for me personally. It's just the fact that I feel like you're really being limited in what kind of using you can be. So probably not going to be like everyone uses over here. So probably a skip. All right, moving on to the blade. And do keep that in mind in terms of these for sub slot. So let's say if you cannot get a secondary of like the melee weapon, what kind of sub slot you keep looking at? I feel like this one is still okay, but in terms of the double saber right here, this is definitely the hardest one to be looking at, because I don't recall we have any big scale of this one over here. So in terms of if you do want to do any subslotting option over here, you just not having any. So probably not going to be the best pickup. So what are we looking at? In terms of this one, is yeah, completely outclassed by its own the dual saber one. So probably not. This one is just not that good at all. So if you guys are able to put this one, I would have to say don't even work on this one, because if you can't get a second copy your sub slot, it's gonna be pretty sad, just not being able to sub slot to an optimal secondary weapon is not gonna be the best. So probably gonna be a skip for alteration for this one specifically. Wow, we also have a beam saber, another beam saber. Oh, right, this one is a Genius Sword 3. I forgot. This one is probably not good for alteration already, just because prior to alteration, I believe is pumping out B plus power already. So even if you do alterate it, you're not really gaining all that much anyways, purely for the stat staking purposes, I guess. So probably not going to be the best alteration for me personally. Simply for self-slot option, I don't think there's any double power boosting down here actually for your big scale. Let me take a look. In terms of saber specifically, I don't think we have any double power boosting. I mean, this one is actually this one's not good actually. Yeah, I don't think we have any double power boosting options. So I think maybe a best bet is maybe going for the GN sword right here. Does offer just a regular boosting right there. So yeah, this one, nope. I mean, yeah, that one actually does have it. What about this one? Yeah, no, this one is not either. So yeah, so if you are able to only get the GN Sword 3, I don't think that one is good for alteration either. So probably another hot skip for sure. Alright, and then the last thing we need to go over is going to be the GN Sword 3 over here. In terms of the GN Sword 3, I think this one is actually doing the same thing as the Cold Sword one over here. No, this one is the Eclipse one over here. So The Eclipse one is actually pumping out a 40%. 40% compared to a 30 to a 35. So this one is actually not going to be a good alteration for sure. Just because of the fact that this one has been out like completely outclassed like on release already. But I would have to say this one on advantage rise over here. This one does have a pro tag over here, so that's why this one is pretty good. This one I would have to say another disadvantage is that you can only use this on P attributes, so you can't really use it in anything else. So probably not going to be the best investment just all around over here. So yeah, so that is going to be pretty much it in terms of the alteration review for the XM Rise over here. So you definitely do have a lot of good parts in this one over here specifically. The armor is definitely the must have to alterate. The backpack for some SS minus power at base level 1, definitely something to kind of have. And then the GM Buster Sword 3, a must have for sure. So with that being said, that is just going to be pretty much it for this overall review for the XM Rise over here. And I'll catch you guys all on the next one.